you outline 5 tips for overcoming obstacles.
Yeah.
One of the tips is to surround yourself with positive people.
Right.
Talk about that one.
It was hard for me growing up because there weren't many positive people. The people that were considered positive were athletes. But the same athlete is the one that sexually abused me. You understand what I'm saying? So if you say that, you say surround yourself around people who are in the church, doesn't mean you don't need to be cautious just because you're around church people. How can you rid yourself of negativity? Many times I would separate myself from the outside world. That means going in the house and staying in the house. So I sort of went from this person who was very outgoing to a very passive person because I sort of had some things that I needed to deal with.
The second one is diversifying your environment.
Yeah, that was a big detriment for us. They say black on black crime, but not going outside of your community is the most hurtful thing you can do. Not learning about another culture. Listen, if we saw a white person in our community, you run. If either you hurt him or you run. Either he's the feds, as they say, or he's somebody coming to get somebody. How can you learn from another culture if you don't get a chance to talk to them? We never saw people of any ethnic races, particularly white. If they did come out, they were social workers or police officers. That means that we didn't learn anything. The only thing I learned was from books. I learned about other cultures because I read it. But I mean, how good is it to sit down with somebody and actually interact with somebody from a different race? We can talk all day about cultural diversity, but they have to be able to play with Susan, Lee, Mark, and so forth.
That's how the real world is. It's everyone. So it is important to have that experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The third point you make is stepping outside of your box, and that kind of speaks to diversifying your environment. Talk about that.
Yeah. Where I come from, you didn't leave the area. The comfort zone was the project in which we lived in. So I don't want to go to Washington, D.C. I don't want to go to New York because I'm comfortable here. You can't grow that way. If you live in an environment where everything is comfortable and there's no room for you to change or grow, that's your comfort zone. That means that I'm comfortable in here. I don't care who comes here, I'm comfortable. Well, you know, that stubs your growth.
And what was that statistic you gave about how many people will never change or are resistant to change?
Yeah, 80% of the people are resistant to change. There's only a small portion of people who are reluctant to or open to or receptive to change. Most people stay the same because they're fear or they have this anxiety about what's going to happen. The fear factor is the number one thing that causes people for change. They don't change.
Seek professional help if necessary?
I had to. We didn't talk to anybody outside of the family. You don't talk to people, you didn't talk to people about what went on here. It was taboo, it was hush hush. We know that that's a detriment. We know that you must get professional help. It's like an alcoholic. If he doesn't seek professional help, he'll never get cured. Right. And there are very few people that can cure themselves that way.
One of the other points you make is to not be afraid to succeed. And that might sound weird to some people, but when you really think about it, a lot of people are afraid to succeed. They don't think that they're really, that they deserve the success they want or the happiness. Why do you think that is? And how do you overcome that?
Yeah, because I think that along with success becomes responsibility. The perceptions change. You see me as a person in your eyes that is now successful. So your expectations change now. You're no longer Angelo Reynolds, you're now Dr. Reynolds. I expect you to make X amount of dollars. I expect you to drive a certain car. I expect you to have a certain level of whatever it is.
So it's living up to expectations, that pressure?
Yeah, and that's pressure that people say, I don't want to deal with. Also, you are expected. So there's the expectations of the perceived person, but also expectations that you have for yourself. And, you know, society creates false perceptions, and those false perceptions create different mindset for individuals like myself, where people say, you know what, and people are afraid. Listen, the minute you succeed or you reach your goal, what normally happens to the average person? There's a higher up. So Maslow, Abraham Maslow talked about that, self-actualization. When you get to the top, what happens? You put another goal up. So now people says, you're a Ph.D. or you're an M.D. So now I expect you to be on Oprah. You wrote books. You need to be on Larry King. Those are their expectations, but not necessarily the individuals.
I also think a lot of it has to do with the fact that a lot of people deep down, they don't think that they deserve that.
They don't think they deserve it. Because people say, you know what? I'm a project kid. I come from nothing. What makes me think I can do better? I don't deserve to be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, or even the president of the United States.
And I think that even happens on a subconscious level, even if they don't even realize those things. So how do we overcome that mentality?
I think people have to rid that of their mind. You have to change it. See, it's a virus. It's almost like a computer virus, where the virus attacks the computer and it gets the computer to freeze up. That's what happens to your mind. It attacks your brain, and you start subconsciously, and even not knowingly, say, you know what? I don't deserve this. I had a friend. She's a doctor, and she was offered a position making $1.2 million a year. One of the rare doctors in the country. She turned it down because she felt like she wasn't deserving of it.
Really?
So she works now, instead of making 1.2 million, she's making 250,000. Good salary, but 1.2 is different from 250,000. But guess what? Her values and her morals, or what her expectations and what she felt like she deserved, was important to her. And so we can't argue that. We might expect her to take that 1.2. I would have, but but she says she wasn't worthy of it. And where that comes from is inner feelings, expectations of what she had for herself, and how she was brought up.
I think that has to also a lot to do with low self-esteem and low self-confidence. So how do parents foster, I know you mentioned your mom would always instill in you, you can do whatever you want, but how else can parents foster that sense of self-esteem and self-worth in their kids at an early age?
You know what I do? For me, what I do, I kiss my kids, I kiss my boys on the forehead, I tell them I love them, I give them a hug, I say, you're the greatest champ. There's nobody better than you. My son, he's 8, he wants to be a dermatologist. I said, you're gonna be the best dermatologist that ever worked on anybody's skin. You tell a kid that. He go to school and he performs and he says, you know what, my dad say I'm the greatest. Even the other kids say, man, you crazy. But constant encouragement. How many guys, when we grew up, got a hug from a man and kissed him on the forehead and said, man, I love you. I constantly tell my kids, one of the things that parents do, you have to constantly reinforce love. You have to constantly reinforce encouragement. You have to constantly tell your kids that, you know what, you are the best. You can be the best. And if we don't do it, who's going to do it?
You not only talk about things like changing your mindset, spirituality, developing a sense of spirituality to gain that confidence. You also talk about eating right. You really look at change as a holistic endeavor. Talk about why that's important.
It's important because I don't think, when you talk about change, I don't think you can just change one part. I hear people all the time say, oh, I want to lose weight in my stomach. Well, the problem with that, you have to lose entire body weight. Nobody has ever lost weight in just their stomach only. So when we talk about changing our mindset, we're talking about tackling challenges and obstacles. It's an inner self. It's an inner change that happens not just from the way you view things, but also the way you treat people. And I tell people, change the way you look at things, and automatically the things around you will change. And so that includes your relationships, that includes your career, that includes your lifestyles of healthy eating, your finances, but more importantly, what direction you're going in, what goals do you have for yourself? If you're a person that wants to get along with people better, what's the best thing to do? Interact with people more. If you're a person that's kind of passive, what should you do as a passive person? I need to talk to more people. The holistic approach touches mind, body, and spirit, where your inner self changes along with your physical self.
Lou Gossett Jr. wrote the forward for your book. How did you meet him?
I met him at a black tie affair a couple of years ago, gave him a copy of the book, asked him would he read it, followed up with him. He said he liked the book. I donated a case of books to his foundation to be used in his work. And then I asked him would he write the forward, and he did.
And what's next for you?
Well, I keep, just continuously go after my dream. I have a dream of speaking to people all over the world because I think I have something to say. I think God has given me distinct talents to reach people who have gone through adversity or who are going through it. And so I want to make sure I write more books. I got another book out now called The Active Change that's in print right now. And so that's what I want to do.
There are dozens, if not hundreds, of self-help books out on the market today, and they all have central themes, perseverance, never giving up, having self-confidence. How does someone take the themes and messages present in these books and really make them applicable to their lives as opposed to just being, familiar empty platitudes?
Yeah, very good question. And you'll see books all the time. 8 steps to changing your life, 9 steps to success. I mean, what my books and what makes me different from a lot of books that follow that catalyst is experience. Because everything that I talk about is not only educational, but it's also experience. So it's things that I've dealt with from a real standpoint. And so what I would suggest people do is take a look at your situation. Everybody's situation is different. You have to read something. If it applies to you and you can use it, use it. If not, go find what you can use. But more importantly, you got to take the step. You got to take the step and you got to apply what fits for you for your situation.